Welcome to the Ask Needyhelper podcast. I am your host, Lee Davey, and this is episode 15 of the Ask the Needyhelper series. This week, my question comes from Frank from the Netherlands, and he wants to know why I quit my job. He's not been very specific on what job he is talking about, so I'm going to turn this into a two-parter. The first part is going to be why I quit my job in the rail industry, and to do that, we're going to have to go back 24 years to 24 years to talk about that one. And then we'll talk about why I decided recently to step down from the World Poker Tour, and we'll talk about that next week. So to begin with, let's go all the way back to coming out of school. I was not an educated person. I never really enjoyed school. I couldn't really get with it. I just messed about a lot. I felt the urge and desire and need to fit in, to be the alpha male, to be the kid that everybody laughed at and wanted to be his friend. And I just didn't feel any pull towards what I was being taught. It didn't interest me at all. So I never really had the desire to learn more and to do my homework. And so I never really wanted to go into further education. And it's strange that when I look back now, because today all I want to do is learn. So it's not like I'm not a sponge and I don't like to learn. I guess it's just, these interesting things that you need to learn about life were just not available when I grew up in school. It was all very boring maths, English, science, usual stuff that everybody else complains about today. So I left when I was 16 years of age and I went to work in a kitchen factory called Selwyn Jenkins in Pentla Industrial Estate. Try saying that without getting any spit on somebody's face. Where my job was to sand and stain pieces of wood. Boom, boom, boom. What an interesting job that was. And at the time, I applied for a job in the rail industry as a railway trainee, and I got the job. I was able to leave the kitchen factory, and I started to earn £78 a week, which was a lot more than the £31 a week that I was earning in the kitchen factory. To cut a very long story short, for the next 19 years I worked in the rail industry, working my way up from railway trainee, which is the lowest position you could find on the railway, to a job known as the area production manager, which was 3 positions away from CEO. So I had actually in the 19 years around 19 different jobs. I worked in all different industries, from operations, accounting, health and safety, training, infrastructure and engineering. And I had the responsibility for hundreds of people, their safety, their well-being, and to be a leader for those people. And also I had the control of keeping operating budget expenditure within line, and also towards the latter part of my career I also had responsibility for revenue. So it was a very, very broad, wide-ranging job. So, and for where I lived, because I lived in a place called Ogmore Valley where there was about 3,000 people, my job was, I think at the time I was earning a basic salary of £45,000 a year. Bonus could be anywhere between 15,000 and 20,000. So the capacity there was to earn 65,000, 70,000 a year. And where I lived, that was like one of the top jobs that you could get. I was very, very fortunate to walk into that job and get that job. So why did I leave it, and what was going on for me at the time? Well, I had not long given up drinking alcohol, so I think I must have been sober, I don't know, between 1 and 2 years. I'm not very good at dates, so I must have been sober 1 or 2 years. And obviously, people who know my story, I gave up drinking alcohol after reading the Alan Carr book. I found that it just spoke to me in so many ways. I realized that all the value that I had attached to alcohol didn't exist, and that I had just made it up in my head. And once I realized that, it kind of like the urge and need and craving to drink just disappeared. I thought that was very powerful, and if you add to that the fact that I gave up smoking through the Alan Carr books as well, for exactly the same thing. People talk about nicotine being the most powerful drug in the world, and yet I was able to just stop smoking just like that. No cravings, nothing, just by understanding that the value that I thought that existed was an illusion. It's very powerful stuff. So what kind of happens in the world, I guess, is when you build up some sort of belief, in my instance here, that books can help you change your life, that when you then pick up a book that says, hey, you can actually do whatever you want in life because you are a very powerful human being and you're no different than everybody else. We're all flesh and blood. Granted, some people genetically are wired to be smarter than others, but in the main, we can all learn, we can all educate ourselves, and we can all work very hard as well, and we can all prioritize what's important in life and have a goal and a mission and go for it. Then we can all achieve so many things. And I went to a talk with Marianne Williamson yesterday, and that's the one thing that she stressed to us all was you have no idea the power that you hold within yourselves, your heart, your brain, and your gut, to actually achieve wonderful things in the world. So I got this belief, and this guy told me in this book that I could do whatever I wanted, and it was Jack Canfield, and the book was The Success Principles, and it's got my mind thinking a lot. He was talking about meaning, he was talking about purpose, he was talking about doing things that you love, he was talking about not doing things for money. And at this time, I didn't realize it back then, but I was having a real tough time in work. It was at the time of the economic crisis around 2007, 2008. Nobody wanted to buy steel anymore. We were losing revenue hand over fist. And as a consequence of that, one of my main roles was to cut operating expenditure, which meant letting a lot of people go. So, we were making people redundant who'd been in the rail industry for a long time, in an environment where it was going to be very, very difficult for them to find jobs. And like I said to you earlier, working in the rail industry was one of the top jobs within the sphere of influence of where I live. So to lose that job when you don't have the belief or the conviction to find anything else, or you've never done anything else, can be very, very difficult indeed. And so I was letting people go. I was getting death threats around this time. By certain people as well. It was a really tough time. My leadership skills were really being brought into question. I was at odds with the company. More notably, my managing director. I didn't like the way that he was driving the company forward, and this whole thing was driving me towards drink. I didn't realize it at the time. I just thought I was drinking because of societal conditioning. I still believe that today, that was a huge part of it. 90% part of it was my social background, but a good 10 to 20% of it was the fact that, unbeknown to me, I was under large amounts of stress in my job. So much so that it was getting to the point where I just didn't want to wake up in the mornings and actually go to work. It was that bad. I would go to work and I would see an employee of mine in work in a car park or whatever, and I would say to him, "Good morning, how are things?" And they would just look at me. I remember one day this guy looked at me and said, "What's fucking good about it?" And I was just surrounded by that negativity and dread on a daily basis. And this course, this Jack Canfield training course that I was doing through the Success Principles, and my coach who was helping me at the time, got me to see that although I'd learned so much from the railway and I'd picked up so many skills, and there were so many parts of railway life that I enjoyed. So I enjoyed talking a lot, I enjoyed public speaking, I enjoyed coaching people, I enjoyed the look on people's faces when I employed them, I enjoyed the look on people's faces when I helped promote them, I enjoyed coaching people, solving problems. And so the coach in Success Principles got me to realize that I could use all those wonderful things, but use it in a way that I woke up every day and I did something that I loved, which wasn't the railway, because I was waking up every morning dreading to go into work, right? So I remember one time we were all around a poker table, because I was playing poker at the time to fill in the void that was created by alcohol, and we used to play every Tuesday night. And it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to go to work at 7, and we were still playing. And a lot of people had to go to work at 7, 8 o'clock, And one of the guys on the table, Terry, said, "Let's keep going." And I said, "I can't, I've got to go to work." And Terry said, "Well, wouldn't it be great if we could do this forever?" And that was a big moment for me, I loved poker at the time. If someone would have said to me, "If I can give you 10,000 hours to master anything in the world, what would it be?" At that moment, I would have chosen poker. It was something. It filled my life after alcohol. I had that community around it. Alcohol wasn't that present, although some people drunk, they didn't drink a lot. And I was building new friendships and new bonds, and I was always thinking all the time, learning this new game, and there was a new challenge ahead of me that I could master. So when Terry said that, why can't we play this forever, it really put into contrast the rail industry, where I was earning a lot of money in a job that I didn't like to pay the bills, and really as well to keep my position in society and in my group and in my community as the guy who worked in the railway industry and had a good solid job, against the poker player guy, the freedom, the ability to do what you want when you wanted to do it. However, the money's not there and the stability's not there, but you're really going to love what you do every single time you step down at the poker table. I also had this incredible drive as well to help people to quit alcohol, because when I quit alcohol, I was so angry that I had learned that alcohol's values were nothing but puffs of smoke and that nobody else around me could see it, particularly people who I loved dearly, whose lives were being ruined is the wrong word. Time was being taken away from them. This precious commodity that you have no idea how important it is until you wake up and see the light, so to speak. This commodity was being robbed from these people who I loved, and I wanted to help them, and I didn't know how to help them, so that was there as well. So working with my coach at Jack Canfield Success Principles, I came up with the idea, the ideology, the thought, the dream, the goal to quit working on the railway and to become a professional poker player that would give me the time and the freedom to then grow my own business, which is Needyhelper, to help people recover from alcohol addiction first and foremost. But I had dreams and visions of helping people on a much wider scale when it came to addiction and habit cracking, we'll call it. Okay, and that was the plan. But nobody apart from my coach really agreed with my plan, and the reason they didn't is because I was like suggesting a huge paradigm shift, right? I mean, for the last 19 years, I was getting a check for about £2,500, £3,000 dropping on my doorstep every month. Every year, I would get a bonus of like, £10,000 to £15,000 plus if the company had achieved its objectives, just land on my doorstep. I never had to worry about anything. In terms of the future, like the railway pension is like one of the greatest schemes in British Rail. It's one of the greatest screens in Europe. I was well looked after for the future in terms of my family, life insurance and death in service. Well looked after. I was landed on the railway. They said it was a job for life when I joined, and they weren't kidding. I could have stayed there forever. I could have kept getting promoted, got my head down, worked really hard, earned really great money, and then lived happily ever after, like the old Disney sayings, But I didn't enjoy it. I didn't hate it. I hated it, and I was getting really stressed out, and I just was getting involved in really bad habits to numb the pain, and my relationships were like falling apart, But nobody would support me, so I was feeling this fear and this dread, and I didn't know what to do. I would cry like on my own about the internal conflict that was going on. I felt like a whore, I was like, I knew that I was only doing this job for money. I was a whore. I was selling my soul for money, and I knew that. And the fact that I couldn't break away from that I didn't have the balls to have this paradigm shift, I didn't have the balls to tell everyone around me that I disagreed with them and I was going to go on my own, and I didn't have the confidence in here to say to my family, do not worry, I will look after you. I will be a provider. That's who I am. That's what I will do, but I'm going to do it in a different way. And you've got to trust me, and I trust myself. And that internal conflict of not being able to like pull away from that whoring and like live a life of like freedom and love was really kind of like, it was like driving me crazy, head butting wall type moments. And I'm sure plenty of you have gone through that same thing. So this is what I did. I went to my main customer, Chorus, right? A huge company. They used to be formerly known as British Steel. They're now owned by Tata Steel. Another huge company. And if you read anything about the Tata Corporation, they are one of the most wonderful companies to work for in the world. They adopt lean principles. They really do believe in the power of the person and looking after their people. A fantastic company. They are one of the companies that is spoken about a lot in terms of conscious capitalism, for example. So, and I loved the people that I worked with when they were my customers, and I liked the way that they treated their people. So I went to them and I said to them, look, I'm gonna try and quit my job on the railway and be a professional poker player. And if I don't make it within 12 months, because I knew that if I left the railway and they let me go, they would give me enough redundancy money to last me 12 months, to give me that trial experiment period. And And I went to course. I said, would you give me a job? And they said, look, I'm sure we'll find you something. So, I had a fallback position. If this didn't work out, I had something that I was confident that I'd be able to walk into. And even if I didn't have that fallback position, after 19 years working on the railway and trusting in my own ability, was I ever not going to get a job, right? Well, I believe that I will always be able to make money, that I will always be able to attract money because I'm smart enough, I'm clever enough, and I work hard enough, and I have that belief, right? And only I can generate that belief. Only you can generate that belief, right? Nobody else can give it to you, although they can help by throwing in plaudits and thank yous and pats on the back, but generally you create that belief, right? So even if I didn't go back working for Chorus, I knew that I was going to get a job eventually anyway. So that was not a real problem for me, although it was scary, And secondly, I had some money. I had a redundancy package. So I don't think I would have done it without that. So that's something to think about. So if you really hate your job, you better start saving up some pennies now to build yourself a buffer zone, which will allow you an emergency fund. If anyone talks to me about financial planning, I have an emergency fund right now. So if I lost all my writing contracts right now and Needyhelper went down a pan, I have a supply of cash which is going to last me a good couple of months until I find a job or find another entrepreneurial scheme to make some money. So you've got to have that buffer. You've got to have a bit of money, because otherwise, if you just leave, then you are really kind of like, the risk reward here is going beyond what is smart. Like, I watched a documentary yesterday called Meru, which is a mountain in the Himalayas, which is like nobody had like climbed to the summit of this mountain. And these two people, Conrad and Jimmy Chin, and this other guy, I can't remember his name at the time, they were going to climb Meru, and they had to weigh up the risk of really making tough decisions that could have affected their life, or not making those decisions. And they were 100 meters from a summit. They could see the summit. The camera could see the summit, right? But they weighed up the risk, and it was too risky to make it. They would put their life too much outside of that comfort zone. So they came down, which is a hugely difficult decision for them. But that risk reward, you've got to be smart here. You can't just quit your job and then go, moving into something that you don't have a backup plan if you have family. I mean, if you're on your own, that's slightly different. If you just want to go backpacking and bumming around the world, you'll make money, right? We all pass like beggars on the street every day who somehow make a living like begging for money. We can always find money in different ways, but my advice to you would be have a backup plan, have some financial buffer that allows you the freedom to pay the bills whilst you try to work really hard at finding this new job, And so, and I also knew that my managing director hated my guts, and we were going through a recession. So, and my salary would have been, they were looking to let people go. So I went in there one day and I gave him my form and said, could I leave after 19 years? And he said, yeah. It hurt my ego, to be honest. I was like, are these guys going to like try to fight for me to stay? He was like, no. Goodbye, Mr. Davey. We've had enough for you. And so that was it. That's why I quit. I then started to try to become a professional poker player in the hope that I would be able to create the Needyhelper business. And today I'm speaking to you through this video blog, which is being posted on my website, which is the Needyhelper. So you can see that obviously turned out to be a success. And we're not going to talk about that now. The whole point was, why did I quit my job? And I can summarize that to like finish about why did I quit my job by saying this, okay? I quit my job because I didn't like it, because it didn't provide me with fulfillment and enjoyment, because it didn't align with my life purpose. Now, you need to figure out what your life purpose is to understand whether or not what you do fits into that mold. Very many thought leaders in this world will tell you that if you wake up every day and you have a choice of working on 20, 30 things, and you choose the thing that is not aligned with your life purpose, if I say to myself this morning, I'm going to do this video for Needyhelper subscribers, I have to ask myself, does this align with my life purpose? Yes, it does. Okay, it does. Now, if I say to myself, but instead of doing this video, I'm going to play poker for 6 hours, does that align with my purpose? No, it doesn't. Like, playing poker doesn't align with my purpose anymore. Like, creating videos, inspirational videos to help people make tough decisions and choices in their life, that aligns with my life purpose. But you need to know what your life purpose is first, right? A life purpose changes. It doesn't stick for life. Like, there might be a time in the future where I decide that like helping people freeing themselves from alcohol addiction so I can then use that money to help change suffering in the world for the people who need it most, then that might change in the future and I might decide I want to be a world-class pianist. How on earth do I know? By the way, there's a few people who know me that think I'm already a world-class pianist, but that's another point altogether. So yeah, find out what your life purpose is and then work really hard at making it happen, right? So, when it comes to like money versus what you love, societal conditioning and every strand of DNA in your body will tell you to be the whore, will tell you to, to work for money. But I am telling you now, right, when you are on your deathbed, when you're just about to die, when everyone is around you holding your hands, asking you to look back in the past and ask you what you care about the most, the last thing you will talk about is that job that you hated. You will say that you wish you spent more time with your family. You will wish that you had more confidence to take more risks and that you wish that you would do something that you loved, right? And if you are feeling like when you go to bed in the night, you're not sleeping very well, that you're worried about getting up, that the alarm clock when it goes off really drives you insane, then they are good indicators that you are not in the right job, right? There are 7 billion, 8 billion people in this planet. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of different jobs that you can do. There is so many things that you can do. All you need to do is find out what it is that you are great at doing, what you love doing, okay? And then you need to go do it. And we don't need as much money as we think we need to survive, right? We don't need it. We can cut our costs, like, the crap that marketers and advertisers are chucking in our faces that we buy on a daily basis. We don't need that stuff, right? It doesn't bring us enjoyment. It doesn't bring us satisfaction. It doesn't make us feel at peace, okay? So find out what you love to do. Ask yourself, am I doing that right now? Yeah? And then if you're not, go and find out how you can do that, okay? And then create a plan about leaving your old job, which involves some sort of emergency fund buffer, whereas you can and it could be that you're in a partnership with someone, wife, husband, whatever, and you could say, they have enough money to take care of the two of you while you go and achieve your life goal. And then you turn it around and allow them to do the same. That's another good way of doing it. Do not live your life in a job that you hate doing, because you will really regret it when you're older. And what kind of example does that set for the people around you, in particular your children? So that's enough for me. Frank, I hope that helped. Next week I'm going to talk about why I quit the World Pogo Tour just recently. Very similar conversation to this one, but because it's more present and it's 5 years after I quit the railway, I think it's really worth covering it. So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed that. Please leave comments on the format and leave any questions you have or that I haven't answered in terms of why people should quit their job, or if you need any help on that, reach out to me as well if you want at needyhelper@gmail.com and ask questions. Use a little widget at the front of the blog to leave an audio message question, or email me at needyhelper@gmail.com to ask a question of the week, and I will answer it in terms of how I've experienced that question in my life, and I'll answer that on this podcast in coming weeks. So in the meantime, please, pretty please, with cherries on top, stop drinking, start thinking, because you only get one life. Now, thanks for listening.